Greetings, YouTube. I found myself pondering the phrase trigger warning the other day at work. And I'm not sure why, but the concept of informed consent came into my thoughts shortly thereafter. Now, the idea behind informed consent, and I'll be speaking of it specifically as it relates to sexual activities, is that a person who is rational and in control of their faculties, they are not impaired chemically, um, can grant informed consent and can revoke informed consent at any time. And consent is not an on-off switch. It is not a go pass to the jackpot. It's a process. It's a building up of trust between two or more people. And it can take time. Someone trusts you this much, and they come to realize, okay, I can trust you this much, so maybe I'll try trusting you this much. And if that works out, okay, then I can trust you this much. And you get to a certain point where you can trust each other pretty much completely. And it doesn't mean you can't say that certain things aren't off limits. There are things that you don't want to do for whatever reason. It's just distasteful. It doesn't feel good. You have had bad experiences in the past. Your upbringing has told you that that is bad, and you haven't overcome that particular socially conservative meme that's been stuck into your head. There could be 1,001 reasons, 1,000,001 reasons. And if the other person is involved in this and you trust them and they trust you, they will abide by that. So informed consent is a process that works over time. And that's a complex idea and process. And a lot of folks don't want to involve themselves in that kind of complexity. And so they want shortcuts. They want the pass that lets them get to the jackpot. And once they get the yes, as far as they're concerned, it's okay. You're going for it. That's not how informed consent works. But as I thought about this, I realized that the concept of informed consent, in my mind at least, bears a great resemblance to trigger warnings. The idea being that you are informing someone that something is going to happen. A topic of discussion is coming up. And you are giving them the ability to grant informed consent to engage in that topic. It's no different than driving down the road and you see a sign up ahead that says dangerous curve ahead. That sign is there for your safety. It isn't just there to inconvenience you. It isn't just cluttering up the scenery. It isn't just there to irritate you. It's there to tell you that ahead there could be something that you really want to be careful about. And some people's skill level, they don't need that sign. They could whiz around that corner doing 45 miles an hour, and it's going to be like their car is on rails. But other people are going to creep around that corner at 20 miles an hour and still feel nervous. And everybody's different. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a trigger warning. It's informing you that something's coming up and giving you the option to grant informed consent whether you will engage with that topic. It is not some politically correct command from some mythical uber progressive. It is simply making sure that everyone that is having the discussion is on the same page and that they will not be traumatized by what comes ahead. Just like informed consent, when I was discussing earlier, over time you discover that your partner or partners don't want to do certain things. And if you're a decent human being, you respect that. You don't belittle them for it. You don't make fun of them. You don't tease them about it. You don't try to push them in that direction. You accept it and you move on with your life. And if they change their mind at some point in the future, okay, they have that option. And if someone doesn't want to talk about a topic today, it doesn't mean they're not going to want to talk about the topic tomorrow or 10 minutes from now or a decade. Because we are a process. We are human beings. We are not static. We are dynamic. We are a moving point on the wave of reality. We are part of the warp and weft of the fabric of space-time. And we move with it. Hopefully, ever expanding, just as universe does. So I'm seeing a direct connection between the concepts of informed consent and trigger warnings. And it's one of the reasons I get so annoyed when people make fun of trigger warnings or see it as the sign of the apocalypse. Because what they're saying is, I don't want you to be able to give informed consent. I want you to take this information, whether you want it or not. I'm going to shove it down your throat. And if you don't want it, that's your failure. That's the frame of reference that's being used when people make fun of the concept of trigger warnings. And as I've spoken about it in the past, if you call them content advisories, suddenly people are like, oh, okay, content advisories. They're on every movie and video game out there. And nobody bats an eye when it says R rating, extreme violence and sexual content, drug use. Nobody is concerned about that. Because it's informing the viewer, do they want to watch this movie? My wife has decided she doesn't want to watch films that have a lot of violence in them. Okay. If I want to watch R-rated action films, I'm doing it solo. And even my attitudes towards violence have changed over time. I am much less tolerant of violence now than I was 20 years ago. We change. So, let's talk about informed consent and trigger warnings. Do you see a connection there? Do you understand where I'm coming from here? Let's have a discussion. Hopefully, we'll all be on the same page.